So if you, when she's talking, you can just drag it over here if you want. Okay, all right, should be good.
Thank you. Welcome back from lunch. It's so great to see all of you, and I just can't express enough appreciation for everyone who spoke this morning. I'm really humbled to be in this crowd and appreciate all of the personal storytelling and sharing that you did that brought these issues to life. Today, we're going to be talking about how we can promote community safety through recruitment and advancement. And while on the surface, that might seem like somewhat of a separate issue, I think it already came up in some of the questions this morning about how staffing affects law enforcement agencies' ability to carry out these things, how bringing the right people in the job will help build trust. So I definitely see a lot of connections between what we're going to be talking about today and the very important issues that were discussed this morning. So I am Jen Rainier. I am the director of the Workforce Wellbeing and Effectiveness Program in RTI's Justice Practice area. And I use my background in industrial and organizational psychology to address workplace and workforce issues in policing and other aspects of the criminal legal system. We are testing out our hybrid function today. So I am joined by Marsha Williams in person and Kim Craven online, who wanted to be here today, but the nor'easter happening in Massachusetts had other plans, but really thankful to have them both here with me today. So Marsha Williams began her career in law enforcement when she became a detention officer in 1995. She since obtained her bachelor's degree in criminal justice and her master's degree in justice administration. And she has risen through the ranks in multiple sheriff's offices and is now a sheriff and the civil executions coordinator in the Cabarrus County Sheriff's Office. She is currently the president of the North Carolina Law Enforcement Women's Association, which promotes professionalism, training, and education. Marsha is also, in her spare time, pursuing her PhD in organizational management at Carolina University. And Kim is, like I said, in the Massachusetts area. And she is the executive director of the National Association of Women Law Enforcement Executives. And she began her career at the Lowell, Massachusetts Police Department, working in several areas, many areas. I had to exclude some of them from the list, just because she is so well-versed, including traffic safety, community engagement, and grants management. During her career, Ms. Craven has supported over 350 municipalities and state agencies, and she specializes in facilitating and conducting organizational assessments, survey development, data analysis, staffing analysis, police district boundary assessments, and grant writing and management. All right. So again, thank you for being here with me today. So in terms of what we're going to be talking about during this session, I was pleased to share some initial findings on this project during the session last year on our project funded by the NIJ on From Research to Reality, recruiting more women into the policing profession. And I'm going to share some updated results with you today. I'm also going to describe two new projects that we have focused on the recruitment and retention issues that we have in policing. And then I'm so pleased that we're going to have some practical insights and recommendations from our two law enforcement leaders, Marsha Williams and Kim Craven. And then we'll do a little bit of Q&A with you in the audience. Okay, so for some background and context and for tying this into the sessions that we discussed this morning, as all of you in this room know, there have been ongoing challenges with recruiting and retention and law enforcement. These issues are not new, but they have become more serious over the last few years, given the negative sentiment and perceptions of policing. And these issues are even more serious when it comes to recruiting women and other underrepresented groups into policing. At the same time, we know it's really important to continue to recruit more women and other diverse candidates into law enforcement. When it comes to women in particular, the existing research shows that women improve trust in policing and really do improve public safety. I thought it was interesting hearing some of the stories this morning about how some of those most trusted officers were women. And women also, they do great police work. It's about the trust building and the communication, but they also do great policing. They get better outcomes for crime victims in certain cases, linking it back to clearance rates. Certain types of cases have been shown to get more clearance from women officers and less likely to be named in community complaints and lawsuits. And women also tend to use less force in policing. So when we think about the way that policing is changing, what communities are asking for from police today, women really help to contribute to building the police force in the way that we want policing to look. We also know that what works for recruiting women generally improves recruitment for all candidates. It's one of the things that I love about this work is that, when we identify, the barriers to bringing more women into policing, these are things that all people want, right? It's the challenges of managing work and non-work life in a policing career. It's not understanding the processes and procedures involved in getting into law enforcement. It's lack of support from the organization. It's the concerns about the perceptions of policing. What will my family and friends think if I join policing? These are the things that women are concerned about, but these are the things also that everyone is concerned about. So when we improve recruitment for women, we improve recruitment for qualified candidates overall. So I'm going to be talking to you a little bit, as I said, about the more recent phases of our NIJ-funded project. So the phase that I presented on last year was presenting some findings about some foundational work that we had done in our phase 1, which is to understand what agencies are currently doing and identifying potential promising strategies for improving the recruitment of women police. So we had conducted focus groups with 70 plus women in law enforcement to understand their perspectives on the issues. We, and by we, I mean my great research team, some of whom are in the audience today, did a really comprehensive coding of agencies' websites and social media pages to understand what kinds of materials are they putting out there in the world. Are they focused on sort of the more community-oriented aspects of policing? Are they really promoting diversity in their websites? Kind of what is the landscape overall of what agencies are putting out there? And we used all of that information that we gathered from that phase to create some online experiments that we conducted both with a general population sample and some students. So we worked with East Carolina University as one of our university partners. So Dr. Heidi Bonner is in the audience. So we have to thank her for getting some of the participants who were included in this study, without whom we would not have these results. So we wanted to see how these different materials are landing with both criminal justice majors and other majors, since we know we're trying to bring a broader group of folks into policing. And we also wanted to see how different recruitment materials were landing with the general population, because again, we're trying to bring more people into the policing field, understand how these different recruiting materials affect attitudes towards a particular agency, toward their interest in policing careers. And then we're also conducting a field study, which is just now launching, with 2 agencies to implement and evaluate these practices in the real world. So we tested Facebook ads, recruitment videos, and job descriptions in this experiment. And we tested a couple different conditions. I'll talk about that in a minute. And we used, again, university students and a general population sample on MTurk, which is a crowdsourcing platform where you can basically get people who represent the general population off the internet to take these studies. And this population has been shown to basically mirror the general population. And what we were looking at was, after people look at these various job ads that we created, how does it affect their perceived sense of belonging at the agency? How meaningful do they think the job would be? How challenging do they think the job would be? What's the perception of work-family conflict in this agency? Other outcomes like person-job fit, person-environment fit, and diversity climate. So these are the Facebook ads that we created. They were just mock ads for a pretend agency, but we modeled them to look like the kinds of ads that really exist on Facebook that agencies put out there. And these conditions were based on the previous research, but also that landscape analysis that we had done that showed what kinds of messages agencies are putting out there. So we compared career benefits, challenge, and service to community in terms of the focus of the text, the pictures, just kind of the general messaging. And then for this particular experiment, we had people rank, which of these is most motivating to you. Then we asked some follow-up questions just about what about the ad resonated or didn't. We randomized them to different versions of a job description, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then we looked at those outcome measures that I mentioned earlier. So we had about 1,000 people complete this survey. And what we found is that the community service message was ranked as most motivating by the majority of participants, so over half, followed by the career benefits kind of messaging. So what that is talking about, these are the benefits of a job in policing. You can do a lot of different types of jobs. There's a lot of opportunity for development. There are good, healthcare, retirement, et cetera, better benefits. So talking about really the career benefits of being in policing. And then the challenge ad was not viewed as most motivating by most people. So this is sort of the more traditional kind of macho way of messaging policing of like, this is a really tough job. Are you up to the challenge? Focusing on sort of the more action-oriented elements of policing. And part of the reason that we still test those messages, even though I think anecdotally a lot of people know that the community orientation resonates more, is because a lot of agencies are still using this stuff. And not necessarily in all of their materials, but what we found in that phase 1 study is that sometimes agencies have created like a really nice page about commitment to the community and diversity, or social media pages or whatever it is. But then there are other pages of their website that aren't really aligned with that, or different ads that are still maybe like relics of old messaging where there, it's a lot of people holding guns and kind of very sort of intimidating kind of focus of policing. So we wanted to see how that affected perceptions. Interestingly, again, as I mentioned earlier, what we're finding is that what works for women tends to work best for everyone. There was very little difference between men and women participants in terms of what resonated most with them. And we learned that both the image and the message matter. We were asking people, what is it about this ad that you appreciate? And people would say, I could relate to the woman in this ad, like that looks like me, so I can relate to her. I like that they're out there in the community, but also the description of the text was viewed as important as well. So we did another experiment where instead we were looking at recruitment videos, and this time we had the 3 messages and topics that we used were service and challenge again, but then we also had a women-focused video that we included. So this time we randomized folks to view one of those 3 videos, and then we had them randomized to the job description. And again, then we measured the perceptions of the organization based on these ads. All right, I'm going to try my best to get this to play for you. Sometimes it doesn't want to cooperate. I might need Shane. Oh no. All right, I'm just going to wait. And maybe Shane will appear from the magic room in the box where he fixes things. But let's see, sometimes it just takes a minute to load. I've tried to present this 3 times and like try to incorporate the video different ways, and sometimes it doesn't cooperate.
If you're a female out there and you want to become a law enforcement officer, you stick with that goal. And it is a challenging profession. However, it is also the most rewarding profession I've ever had.
There has been so many opportunities. I have as many opportunities as any of my male counterparts. You can be anything that you want to be because we are so accepting. It's how hard are you willing to work? Who do you want to be? What is your passion? And that's what you give here.
While moving within the ranks, I've always taken great pride in opening the doors for the women officers who followed in my footsteps. I stand on the shoulders of those who came before me, and I hope you find that same sense of pride as you choose your purpose.
Hi, I'm so glad that worked. It doesn't always work. So, and how we made those videos, again, was based on that foundational research and our conversations with women officers. And those were clips of real policing recruitment videos that we pieced together to make a women-specific version. And then we did the same thing for the challenge and the service. We just took pieces of other people's videos that were public and merged them together for this experiment and just kind of smoothed over the audio. But it's funny because I presented this in other places and people are like, can we use that generic video? Like that would be really useful. So I actually don't know the answer to that, but if you want to know, I can look into it. Okay, so in terms of what we found. So for this experiment, we tested this with 900 people, again, with MTurk and university students. And across all participants, what we found was, again, that the service video far outranked the challenge focused video. So again, the challenge one was more about action-oriented policing as opposed to engaging with the community. But for women, the women-focused video, the one that we just watched, was rated the highest in terms of motivating people to apply. And that's aligned with what we see in the research, that you really do need to, if you're trying to bring in specific groups, you need to create materials and messaging and actions that are specific to them, not just kind of put out these generic things and hope that you get the people that you want. So we did ask people for some feedback on, what it was about these messages that appealed to them. So this is just a couple quotes from the participants, right? But just one example is, since I'm a woman going into law enforcement, that video helped me see that there are other females in the job the job field that I plan to go into. And we know that this is so important from, the women professionals in the field. The need for role models is really huge. So incorporating that into your materials is really helpful. I mentioned we had different versions of a job description. So I think this has been looked at a little bit less in policing so far, but in other fields, there's been a lot of attention on what is the language used in a job description itself and what are the effects of that on potential applicants. So we tested 3 different versions of a job description. So one that was pretty much standard, kind of the typical policing job description that you see, describes, just the overall duties. Then we created a diversity-oriented version, which really kind of hyped up the importance of diversity for an agency. So saying, we're looking for people with different backgrounds from different races and ethnicities and genders to really make our police force diverse. And then we had a final condition that was policy oriented. So I mentioned we had talked to a lot of women officers, understanding the kinds of policies and practices that they want an organization to have in order for them to see themselves there. So things like parental leave, paid parental leave, sufficient breaks and a place to, a lactation room for when they return from having a baby. And so in the policy oriented description, we included all those different policies that we know are important to women. And what we found here, the most significant difference was that the diversity-focused job description was associated with a significant increase in perceptions of diversity climate for both men and women respondents. And the construct of diversity climate is basically, I think that this agency values people like me, people of different, genders, races, ages, et cetera. I think that people of all of these different groups have the opportunity to advance. Basically, I genuinely believe that this organization cares about diversity. So we found that the language for the job description did matter. But interestingly, only in the video experiment and not in the one with the Facebook ads. And, we can't say for sure why that is, but we think it's because the video content is just more engaging. So you kind of had people paying more attention by the time they got to the job description, right? They were reading it more closely. They were actually noticing kind of the differences. Whereas perhaps with the Facebook ad, it's a static thing. Maybe people didn't look at it that closely and they were kind of maybe a little bit more checked out by the time they got to the job description. So just a plug, I think everybody knows that social media is really important, creating content that's engaging. I think we're seeing that can really have big effects. Okay, so I'll try to go through this a little bit quickly, but I just want to emphasize that it's so important in our research that we create actionable recommendations. So I wanted to highlight an article that we had in Police Chief magazine that was based on this work. Kim Craven is a co-author on that because Nolly and Kim herself are very involved in this project. Also our colleagues at the National Policing Institute. But we took everything that we've learned from this project so far and created 10 steps for recruiting more women police. I think that Marcia and Kim are going to talk about, some of these aspects in their conversations, but I did just want to make it known that this is available. And a very high level, just kind of show you what these 10 steps are. But in the article itself, we make it very concrete in terms of what these things actually look like. And we give a couple of examples from 1 or 2 agencies of how they've actually brought these things to life. Because I think that's one of the things that's sometimes missing is how to connect the research to what an agency can actually do. So these are things like, as I mentioned, feature the range of careers in policing, highlight the different aspects of police work. That's one of the things that gets people interested, highlight the unique skills that women bring into policing. And I won't go through all 10 of these. I'll leave this set up for just a couple of minutes here so you can see, but, support for continued learning, career development, and education. These are all things that, again, resonate with women, but just people in general for thinking about how to get more people involved in the field. So next steps in the project, we are going to be making full reports on the detailed findings of this available online as soon as they are ready. And we are going to be conducting one final online experiment focused on trying to address the negative perceptions of police. We know that obviously that's a huge barrier, right? We've been talking about this morning of getting more people involved in the field. So we want to create a couple of different options for web content that explicitly addresses that issue and see if we can affect people's perceptions of policing as a profession in general and their interest in getting involved. So perhaps next year, I or one of my colleagues will be sharing the information from that study. And then again, we're conducting field experiments with 2 agencies, Greensboro and Dallas, Texas. So we are going to be implementing some of these practices in real life and hopefully seeing some impacts of the updated recruitment materials. We have a website, we have an email address, so feel free to check that out to stay posted on the project. And then I just wanted to mention 2 new studies that we have. So one is called Aspire, which is, I don't know, the Zoom thing is covering the title, but it's an exciting new project that we have that's funded by the Bureau of Justice Assistance. And through this project, we are going to be trying to kind of harness this energy that people have over the last few years about really wanting to change policing and try to figure out how to draw more people into the profession, particularly people of color. And we're going to be doing this partially through creating career pathways and opportunities to engage in law enforcement who are in HBCUs, so students and faculty and leaders, and also folks in the community. And the result of that project will be a toolkit for law enforcement and other stakeholders to understand how to utilize what we learn to bring more diverse folks into the profession. And then we're also going to be doing a retention study because we know that recruiting is just one side of this, but we also need to keep people in the door. So we're going to be working with 30 by 30, which is the initiative to get 30% of all recruits to be women by the year 2030, working with 30/30 agencies to do a multi-phased study to understand, of all the things that anecdotally people are trying to do to improve retention, what's really going to make the most difference. I think we've learned in conversations, even with folks here at this meeting, it's often not money. Money's not the issue, and you need to pay people sufficiently, of course, but that's not necessarily what's driving people away. It's not insufficient pay. It's other aspects of the work environment and about policing. So we want to help identify some evidence-based practices there to support retention. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Marsha Williams, and she's going to share some of her insights from her outstanding career in the profession. So it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have the hard part. So we're coming on. It's always tough when you have the after lunch crowd, right? So it's always tough. So I'm gonna come down if it's okay. I'm gonna come down. I'm not gonna come down on that end. So, try to engage with you a little bit. Again, it's tough when you have the after lunch crowd. So I'm from a little town called Richlands, North Carolina. Anybody ever heard of Richlands? Really? Surprising. Usually nobody's ever heard of Richlands. So I was born and raised in Richlands, North Carolina by my grandparents. Very, very sheltered life. But I knew at the age of 5 that I wanted to go into law enforcement, right? Because my uncle worked for Onslow County Sheriff's Office. And I was about 5 years old. And my grandmother used to have his picture on the wall, and it was like the pride that in her eyes when she would look up at that picture. So I knew about when I was about 5 years old, I wanted to go in law enforcement. I wanted to wear a uniform. I didn't even know what the job title was then, but I knew I wanted to wear that uniform because I knew it was a profession that would make my grandparents proud. So fast forward to 1995, I was a detention officer for Onslow County Sheriff's Office for 2 years. I wanted to go back and get a degree, transferred up to Charlotte, worked in Mecklenburg County for 24 years. But when I first started in Mecklenburg County, I was young, 22 years old, naive, didn't know a lot. But we used to have these supervisors, and they will pull you to the side and they say, hey, let me teach you how to get yourself together as a young lady. So that's what the North Carolina Law Enforcement Women's Association does for women all over the state. That's what we do. We pull these ladies in. We say, hey, let us help develop you. You know, what are your goals? What can we do to help you achieve your goals? One of the classes, I want to tell you a little bit about a class that I teach at the academy. And it's called Protecting Your Resources. And in that class, right, 2 of the resources we talk about are the physical capital and the human capital. So physical capital, what? Your patrol cars, your radios, your pepper spray, your uniform, the jails, the buildings, the courthouse. But the most important asset that any agency has are the people. And when you get those people, when it's easy sometimes to go out and recruit, but how do we retain them? Okay, how do we retain these women in law enforcement? So it's simple. Sometimes it only takes a little bit of your time. It only takes a little bit of your time. So I want to do this experiment, right? So we're talking about recruiting and retention. So I'm gonna tell you, it gets into that transformational leadership also. That's how we are able to help retain good employees. So what is that transformational leadership? Well, you have this leader, maybe a sergeant, maybe a captain, and then you have your employees that you supervise. But under transformational leadership, everybody's on the same playing field. It's not like the supervisor's up here, the line staff is down here. You have to make everybody feel important if you want to retain your good law enforcement officers. I have a question. Has anybody recently had a birthday? Anybody? Let me see. Let's hold on to it for a second. Anybody recently get promoted or had a kid graduate from high school? Let's hold on to that. And a baby. Anybody having their first baby or grandbaby? Did I see a hand back here? I took my glasses off. All right, so give you this. Hold on to that. And I just have some random cards. I'm gonna give you one. I'm gonna give you this. Can I give you this? Okay. I'll give this to you. So if you received the card, right? This is a part of transformational leadership. Again, you may say, why are we doing this? Because we are talking about retaining our good employees. So if you got a card, I want you to open that card up. I want you to take a second and I want you to read this card. So open your card. Just want you to read it. I see some heads nodding. I see Miss Tanya smiling. She must got a good card. Mhm. So has everybody finished reading the card? So who received the new baby card? Okay. How did that card make you feel? If I was your supervisor and I took time out and I hand wrote that card to you, how did that card make you feel? Good, good.
She
good.
said all good stuff with virtual crowd.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you, we'll leave mics on this part. My next person, which card did you get?
I have the lieutenant card,
So a thank you
a
card.
thank you card.
Okay.
Yeah. So tell me how it made me feel.
Tell me how that card made you feel. If
So-
I was your captain of your shift and I gave you that card, tell me how it would make you feel.
It would make me feel like I was seen. Valued is a common thing. But I would say you actually see me, you actually know I exist, and you actually care about how I'm doing.
All right. All right. Will you tell me a little bit about your card? You just got a thank you card, right? Tell me, how did that card make you feel? If I was your captain, you're on my shift, your line staff, and I just say, put your name on it and give you that card. How does it make you feel?
Well, it made me feel appreciated. Also, it talks about sort of daily service. So not just appreciate for one thing, but for, that for consistency. And then the family is also mentioned so that, my supervisor and the organization cares about me and my family.
Okay. Transformational leadership. How do we retain our good people in law enforcement? You have to realize, this is for my leaders. when you hire somebody to come and work in public service, you're not just hiring that person, you are hiring their family also. So you have to keep that in mind. Okay, you have to keep that in mind. We may have leaders, what about a young woman or male who works in public service, and they say, hey, I need 2 hours off to go take my child to the doctor. And you say, oh, we're so short, I just can't let you leave. So now they got all that on their mind. They got to find somebody else to take their child to the doctor. Okay. Transformational leadership, we need to keep all this stuff in mind. All right. You're not just hiring this officer. You're not just hiring this firefighter, right? You are hiring the family. You're welcoming that family into the agency. All right. You got a card? You just got a regular thank you card?
Thank
All
you.
right. And how it make you feel?
On a personal level, the connection, and you feel positive, that your person cared. It definitely shows leadership, and that I could come to that supervisor with issues or problems that may come up.
Okay. Very good. Who got the congratulations card? Did we do that one already? I'm sorry.
No, I love it.
How it make me feel?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd be at work every morning just for you.
And that's the point. That's the point. Can you read that card?
Congratulations to you. So happy for you. You've worked so hard and accomplished so much, and you deserve all the happiness and success that comes your way. Congratulations. You have a lot to celebrate. Officer Deputy, congratulations on your promotion. This achievement is well-deserved and well-earned. You and your family are valued and appreciated. Members of the Sheriff's Office, Police Department, if there is anything more I can do to help you in your career, your career continue to be successful, please let me know. Respectfully, Marsha M. Williams, Shift Captain.
This is what we have to do, ladies and gentlemen. If we want to retain our good law enforcement officers in law enforcement at our agencies, we have to promote transformational leadership. You have to be in tune with your emotional side. You have to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the staff that you supervise. And that's what we promote in the Women's Law Enforcement Agency. We have a lot of people reaching out to us now. We have, we recently partnered with the SBI and the FBI because we need folks, when they come to work each day, we need their mind clear. I've always questioned, how do you expect law enforcement officers to go out and be productive in serving the citizens of the communities that they patrol if you're not checking on their emotional intelligence? If you're not checking on their well-being, their mental well-being, right? Who else got a card? Okay. How does your card make you feel?
I echo what everyone said, appreciated, and it goes beyond just. I said it echoes what everyone else said about the positive feedback, and it goes beyond just a thank you for what you do. It's, a full letter of saying thank you. And, if there's anything I can do to continue to make your career successful. So thanking, and then also saying like, I'm here for you too. So that support, I think, makes you feel really good.
Would you come and work for me if I offer you a job?
Yeah, I can work for you.
Will you come shout out for me? Like, will you do a career? And I'm gonna pass it to you. And give me your interpretation. Which card did you get?
I got the birthday card.
Oh, good, good, good.
Yeah, it's so it's also pressure of being the last card, like it's pressure after lunch, because so many of the good things, because I was going to say I felt seen and I felt connected and I felt loyal. Like, yeah, I will show up and work hard. And I also appreciated the family connection as well. So there were similar themes, but the response surprised me how much it impacted me.
Mm-hmm. Good. And I want to just let you all know that this is what I do for the employees that I supervise. It wasn't hard for me to come up with what I wanted to write in these cards because this is who I am naturally. And when I go to work each day, it shows. I called myself taking an early retirement a couple years ago. And I got a phone call, I said, oh Lord, I have the years, I don't have the age, but I'll find something else to do. So when the sheriff found out that I was gonna do an early retirement, excuse me, he said, hey, will you come talk to me? And I went and I talked to him, and I thought he was gonna talk to me about holding my certification. He offered me a job the same day. He offered me a job and he said, Marsha, if you accept my offer, I'll hire you today. And I said, really? And not knowing, but anyway, I took the job and my early retirement lasted about 2 months, right? But because I am a transformational leader, what I didn't know, and I did not intend for this to happen. I did not intend for this to happen. But what I didn't know is some of the folks that I used to supervise would follow me. So one of my friends told me, she said, employees will follow good leadership. And you can't just write it in a card and not do it. You have to be a transformational leader. You have to let your people know that you supervise, that you love them, that you care for them, that you care about their families, okay? We have to do all of that because once you do that for your employees, they can go out and better serve the community, right? Because Ms. Tanya, that's what we're looking for, right? So we have to make sure that we are transformational leaders and we have to make sure we mean what we say when we tell our employees that we care. And that's the message that we are trying to send to all the public service agencies in North Carolina. So with the Women's Association, we are tweaking our logo. Like you said, you know, our old logo, you pull us up, you know, on the internet, it's a female holding a gun. This was a logo that was created actually with the help of the Justice Academy in 1956. So we just got a new creation for our logo. We're getting ready to put it up. We just have to vote on it on April the 1st. And it's just a group of women. You know, we're still cute, you know, but we're just not holding the gun up. So we just want to make sure, you know, with all the ladies that's in the association, this is the message that we're sending. I'm grateful to say that the message is getting out. We're just not trying to get our numbers up for the association, right? The word is getting out. These are some great things that we are doing for our people. We are turning these ladies into transformational leaders. Another thing is, who are my leaders in here? Department heads. Everybody say, I'm not raising my hand. So if you work in public safety, you have this annual review, and that annual review determines how much money I'm gonna make the next fiscal year. If you work in local government or state government, you receive benefits, right? You receive so many days off, vacation days. How many of y'all get those vacation days each year? You get these vacation hours accumulated, you get these sick hours accumulating, right? You get your holiday hours accumulating. So when you get that annual review, leaders, I'm telling you, don't let, and if you're doing this, I'm gonna ask you to stop doing it, but don't let your supervisors give your employees for using benefit time. You wanna run somebody away? If your earning potential for the fiscal year is 4%, and you have a supervisor that does that annual review, and I'm telling you this because this happens, and they do that annual review and they say, oh, you use 24 hours of sick leave this year. I can't give you an E on this one. I can give you an S for satisfactory. You know what you just did? You reduced that officer's earning potential for the year for using a benefit that is given to them by the county. I'm telling you, if we want to retain, okay, this is a hard truth. If we want to retain our young men and women in law enforcement who are dedicated to your agency, we have to be dedicated to them in every aspect. All right, so if you're a leader, have that hard conversation. A lot of leaders do it because their supervisors did it to them, right? You ever hear the story about the lady, the lady, she used to always cut off a part of the ham every Thanksgiving. She would cut off the tailbone of the ham, right? And her daughter grew up and she cooked her ham for Thanksgiving and she would cut off the tail part of the ham. And one of the girls said, well, Mom, why did we cut the ham? She said, I don't know. I cut it off because my mama cut it off. So let's call Grandma and see why she cut off that part of the ham. They called Grandma and say, well, Grandma, why you cut that part of the ham off? She said, I don't know. Because I do, because my mama used to do it. They called great grandma who's still living and said, well, why do you cut that part of the ham off? And she said, because I never had a pan that was big enough to hold the whole ham. So that's what some of our supervisors are doing. We're doing stuff, right, that our supervisors taught us to do. And when we go out and we talk to these ladies and we try to figure out, why did you leave this agency? I recently had a female chief come to me and she said, Marsha, I don't understand. She said, I'm a female chief and I'm losing my female officers. She said, it makes me feel some kind of way. And I wanted to say, come let me teach this transformational leadership class to your agency, or this protecting your resource classes to your agency. But if we are going to be transformational leaders, if we want to keep our good quality people in law enforcement, we have to love up on them. That old, in the early 2000s, I was in a training class, and way back then, one of the instructors say, you can't keep telling your people to go work at Burger King if they don't like what's going on in the agency. We still have some of those folk in the agencies, right? Because they will leave. They will leave and they will take their talent somewhere else and they don't have to go to Burger King. My kids graduated from college and went and worked at Chick-fil-A. They work 2 or 3 jobs and they have roommates. You guys see that a lot now. I'm pretty sure some of your kids are doing it, or they're coming back home. They won't get a job making that money where they can live on their own. They'll get a roommate. And I asked my son when he first graduated from college, why do you go work for Chick-fil-A? He said, because they value me. They make me feel like I'm a part of the team. Chick-fil-A, Google, Southwest Airlines, and I can't think of the fourth one. I did some research a couple of years ago on it. They have the highest retention than any other, well, I'm not gonna say agencies because they're not law enforcement agencies, but they have a very high retention rate because of the way they treat their employees. And that's why we teach our ladies in the Women's Association. I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Sumi. I talked to him on lunch. I didn't know if he would remember me or not, but several years ago, I helped to bring an international law enforcement women's conference to Greensboro. So if you're from the Greensboro area, I don't know if you remember that or not, but I remember him, and you guys don't know the number of people he saved in High Point. I remember the High Point model, because he would go and knock on your favorite auntie's door and say, hey, your nephew about to get in some trouble. Let me tell you what he's doing. Because he cared. And so when I came here today and I saw him, I was so grateful to see him, especially talking about retention, because we look for the Mr. Sumis in our workplace. This is who we need, people that really care. And when we get them, we have to make sure we're doing all we can do to retain them. So that's my little spiel on retention. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you so much. And Marsha, the woman that you gave the card to for the new baby, I'm her supervisor, so I gotta go get a card. I sent some very supportive texted emails, but I did not get you a card. I'm sorry. But I so appreciate everything that you shared. And, one of the other projects, I will only talk about this for 2 minutes, but it just made me think. So we have a project that we are implementing in Denver PD where colleagues of mine, Ellen Kosick and Leslie Hammer, who are organizational psychologists, they're implementing what's called a family supportive supervisor training. We talked about this in the first call where we met, and it's basically this. It's a structured way of teaching people how to better support employees with just these everyday behaviors and emotional support, things like what you're describing. That's one of the elements. Another element is making sure that supervisors are aware of the various resources that exist within the agency and promote those things regularly, because we know a lot of times there are different offerings for health and wellness, but either because of stigma or because of norms or lack of time or whatever, people aren't utilizing those things. But anyway, what you're describing of this just everyday emotional support, kind of these little things, the research shows this has a huge impact. And you know that, I'm sure from your research as well, but it truly does improve job satisfaction and reduce stress and reduce turnover. And I think a lot of, I'm sure those of you sitting in the room, this resonates and, you care and want to do these things. I think in some places, there's still a bit of a mentality of like, we don't have the time for that. Or like, young people just want a trophy for everything and want to be praised all the time. And like, that's ridiculous, but it's not ridiculous, right? Like we all want to feel valued and seen and all of the things that you all described when you read those cards. So I appreciate you bringing to life, what we see in the research that really works. And I just thank you for those examples. And Merritt, I'm on it with your card. All right. So with that, all right, we're truly trying out our hybrid model here. I'm going to try to turn it over to Kim Craven. There you are. Yay, it worked. Who again is the executive director of NOLI and a valued colleague of mine. I'm going to try to sit down and turn the slides from here. We'll see how it goes. And you know what? I will make her bigger on our screen. But take it away, Kim. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone's work in getting me there virtually today. We are still buried under more than 2 feet of snow here. So I'd much rather be down with you. But just by way of introduction for the National Association of Women Law Enforcement Executives, for those of you that might be unfamiliar, NOLI was started 27 years ago by 6 women that were at the International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference, and they saw how much they were in the minority. So when I started back in this field in the 1980s, we were just at 5%. While we haven't made as much strides as I would have liked over these years, we are getting better. And I do believe that the vision of the women that started NOLI really did help the women that were in the field to stay. They came up with the foundation of lead, inspire, and mentor. And up until a while ago, NOLI was focused on that through its conference program. But over the last few years, we've really developed a number of different initiatives, programs, collaborations, partnerships in order to move the needle, bring more recognition to women in the field. So today we're open to anybody that wants to support diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I like to say opportunity for advancing women in the field. And as Dr. Rayner said, as we advance women in the field, we are opening the doors for more people to join the law enforcement profession, and especially those from diverse backgrounds, just by the changes that we're making with the recruiting and retaining folks. If you could just go to the next slide. I wanted to share this with you so that you knew of some of the resources if you wanted assistance. So in the middle, you'll see the research projects, and 2 of them Jen already did talk about today. And the one on the right, the research and evaluation and policing, that is a project that we're just getting started working on, and that will focus on the promotion of women in the field, barriers and success factors. What's exciting about that middle row is that back in 2018, there were about 100 women that were gathered at the efforts of Moma Goff. She was at NIJ at the time, and she found some money in her couch cushions, as she likes to say, at the end of the year. And I wish I had her couch because it got us all there to DC for 2 days. And we can talk about what was going on. And one of the things that we noted is that there was not a lot of research happening on women in policing. I'm really excited that that's changing today, that we are getting more attention from our federal partners and from philanthropic and from our vendor and sponsor community to focus on these things. So we've got some research going on. The top 2 projects are research, are resources for you that tie in to the research. So CRITAC, the Collaborative Reform Technical Assistance Center, is funded by the COPS office. It's overseen by IACP. And then we have a group of peer associations. And what we provide is a for the field, by the field technical assistance experience for agencies. You can call up CRITAC and ask about any different project that you could think of. I'd like to say that it is really the best and easiest grant program that you'll ever encounter. Interestingly, though, money won't actually change hands. The process is that you call IACP, you let them know what you are interested in solving. It could be de-escalation, could be a policy, it could be around traffic safety, community engagement, all of those topics, including recruitment, retention, wellness, all things that are very much in the forefront of our minds when we think about our law enforcement officers and what they need. And what's really nice about CRITAC is you call, there'll be an intake call set up with you with our peer partners. We'll listen to you, talk to you. Then IACP will actually write up your work plan and find the subject matter experts to either develop training for you, include you in training that's already going on, or do peer-to-peer collaboration. So that's something that you can use if you are trying to expand your resources and reach related to recruitment, hiring, and retention. So write that down, CRITAC Collaborative Reform Technical Assistance Center. The other program that's on the top, Elevate Blue, is funded by BJA. That is also overseen by IACP and a smaller subset of the partners that are in CRITAC. We are focusing on 6 areas: community engagement and trust, de-escalation, use of force, leadership, management, supervision, response to critical incidents, mass demonstrations, and recruitment, hiring, and retention. So that will provide free training for you online. So if you have recruiters that are new, you are a smaller agency and you just want to learn about the recruitment process, those are tools that will be free to you. On the bottom is the COPS office in general. So COPS has supported NOLI with our ability to do some research on gender in the workplace, much like generations in the workplace. There are some similarities. However, we don't want to be stereotypical. So not everything that we talk about in that research applies to everyone, but it does give us some really good insight on how to use the best strengths of the men and women within your organization to create high-performing teams. One of the newest programs that we're offering now is in collaboration with Valor, that is funded by BJA, and we are partners with IIR as part of a subcontract to focus specifically on officer safety and wellness for women. And that's the first time that there'll be a program that's focused just on women officers and their wellness. So these are all tools for your toolkit that you've got that you can help to either get folks in the door or to make sure that they stay once they're there. And the other thing of note that I don't have on this slide, but I do want to let everyone know about, is the COPS office microgrants are open right now. And we are looking for agency partners that want to work specifically on recruitment, hiring, and retention. That is an allowable category. So if folks are interested, please let me know so that we can try to collaborate and support you in that effort. Much of what Dr. Raniere talked about with changing the practice and the policies, we're starting to actively do that with some agencies as part of technical assistance so that we can help the organizations that are coming forward, some of them through CRITAC, to ask how they can improve their strategies that they're using. Next slide. This is a slide with a lot of the different programs with NOLI, but I'm just going to talk about 3 right now and the importance of them and how it connects with what you're doing in the field. I'm sorry that I can't ask for a show of hands, either in the audience or online, but if there are folks that want to put in the chat, if you are 30 by 30 communities, always love to know that. So 30 by 30 is a program that was developed coming out of the 2018 summit. Moma Goff, who I mentioned, and Yvonne Roman had this idea in their head of what can we do? How can we continue to put pressure on. And we talked about it for a couple of years, went back and forth. Mo organized some meetings and assembled a steering committee to talk about what could really change how women are recruited into the field. And so the notion of 30 by 30 was planted, and the seeds grew. The group that started on the steering committee helped to recruit agencies so that when the project was kicked off just 2 years ago, at the end of March, there were already some agencies that had stepped forward, and now there's over 300 organizations. That includes a pledge so that you are intentionally trying to recruit women, thinking about your policies and practices and what the numbers look like for you within your own organization. And it creates a community of practice where people meet each month. There's different featured speakers and some support there just by the networking that occurs. So if you haven't signed up for 30 by 30 yet, that's something that you can do. It is a no cost initiative to you. There's no cost for you to join, and the activities might take some staff time, but they're not going to take any money in order to implement. The next one there is the JAM program, the Justice Action Network Foundation. So through Arnold Ventures, there was a team that was assembled. So there's about 12 to 15 of us that were recruited nationally to focus on some of the biggest things that are around policing reform. And one of our main topic areas is recruitment, hiring, and retention, and tying that into wellness. So there'll be some findings out of there that can help you. And then we have our mentoring program. And the mentoring program is one that is really valuable. So business and industry have been using formal mentoring programs since the early 80s. We're a little bit slow to adopt it in a formal way in law enforcement. But what business and industry found by a very large study that they did is that 97% of folks think that they would benefit from a mentor. And we know in law enforcement, you can't get that much agreement on anything. So if we can follow in their footsteps and understand that mentoring does matter, I think we'll be well served from it. The studies that they did showed that the retention rate for those that had been mentored was 72%, and it was almost double that of those that did not have a mentor in their career. That's meaningful. In today's environment, when attrition rate is so high, the more that we can get people to stay in the job and, most importantly, be satisfied with their job, which is also an outcome of the mentoring, that's really important. Mentors have been shown to be promoted 6 times more than those that do not mentor others. So note that that's not the mentees, that's the folks that are mentoring. So what does that tell us about the mentors? That probably there are ones that leadership is innate. So if you create a mentoring program, you might have folks rise up that you had never considered before or thought about as being the next generation of leaders for your organization. Then with the mentees, they are being promoted 5 times more often than their peers. We know it can be a bit of a struggle to get folks to promote, especially women. There's a lot of questions that they have around the elevating in their career, what that might mean to family, the changing of shifts. But with a mentor, it's much more successful. So we're really excited to be able to bring those types of programs to the field. And the nice thing about it is that our mentoring program is funded externally. And that means that we're able to offer the training free. It's through a grant funded in part with Motorola Solutions Foundation. So if you're interested in bringing mentoring to your agency, please do email us. We have several classes that are going on, but that is something that is really important. The other part with mentoring is agencies are not only mentoring those that are in their career, but mentoring folks at the start of their interest in law enforcement. The minute someone presses a button or attends a career fair or whatever it is that you're connecting with them, as soon as they become an applicant to your organization, if you sign them a mentor to help walk them through the process, that will help. At the end of my presentation, I'll show you a website that's doing really well with sharing information. But unfortunately, we don't do a great job in our profession of sharing forward what it really means to be a law enforcement officer, what it's like to go through the academy, and what you need to gather up for your personal history statement. So the more that we can guide folks through that process, both with forward-facing information on websites and handouts that you might use, or what you're connecting to with your QR code, you can help them by really giving some touch points to this generation to get them through the process. You can also use mentoring to help women get through the academy and pre-academy with their physical fitness standards. So we know that there is a dropout rate for women not being able to make the fitness standards, but if you start mentoring them, have run with a recruit, things of that nature, that can really help you with your quest to get them through the academy. And then just having another seasoned female to answer questions as they're going through the academy, things that they wouldn't really feel comfortable with asking a male counterpart, or quite honestly, that some of the men would never have experience with, right? Like, how do you use the restroom when you've got your gun belt on? Those types of questions, you need another female that's been through it in order to help those officers with that. Next slide, please, Jen. So in talking to folks from across the country and things that are happening that have helped, one of the big things is to be able to incorporate emotional intelligence into the hiring. We actually have one agency here in Massachusetts, Chief Jody Casper, Northampton Police, has stopped the written test because it didn't actually apply. And so you've got to think of, if you're trying to hire for problem solving and your testing doesn't have those types of questions in it, does that make sense? Are you better off trying to find someone that has empathy, that can problem solve, that has really good communication skills, that can read body language, and then train them to be police? So rethink what you're doing there. One of the other things is, especially in agencies that are civil service, there's an obstacle and a barrier with the focus on military preference. So if military has absolute preference and women are underrepresented in the military, it's only natural that then they're going to be underrepresented in the pool of applicants that can come forward. So civil service communities that let you go from the top 3 on testing, and then if you have points for military, you might have a female that scored a 99 on that civil service exam, but can't get ahead because someone has the extra points for military. And obviously, the larger that you get, your pool will get bigger, but the percentages of women will still be lower. There's ways that you can honor our military and appreciate their service, but make it a little bit more equal in terms of opportunity when it comes to the procedures that you have. So the other part is rethinking our shifts. We're pretty standard with our shifts, starting to change a bit more with the implementation of 10 and 12-hour shifts. But after researching years of crime data, I know that crime and calls for service happen 24/7. So the notion that we have to start at 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning doesn't make sense anymore. There's ways that we can, in a very meaningful way, have part-time staff that are full-time certified. If you have someone that is raising a family and they need some time off, why make it so that they can't be an officer at all? If they keep their certification up, why can't you use them in a way that makes sense? And shift sharing. So if someone is available part-time and another person is available part-time, and you've already invested in training, why can't we be creative? Here in the Northeast, until recently with the new reform, Massachusetts actually lost a lot of their part-time officers because they couldn't get the training in time. But by and large, some of these small New England towns by me really survived with part-time officers. They would have full-time certification, and because New England is so small, the officers would sometimes be shared. So if you're certified and you get your dual certification, you can retire from one state and work in another, and people would work across the border or work in a few towns part-time, and it was at the need of the organization. So if we could do it because the organization needed to fill spots and they relied on part-time officers, why can't we proactively do that? There's really no reason. Then ensuring equity and the opportunity. when we have few women in an organization and they're left out of sort of the social network and the fabric of the organization, they will miss opportunities to learn new skills, to develop their career. Really need to make sure that training opportunities are available. I'll just use our conference. Often I hear of women coming on own dime, own time, and it really shouldn't be that way for women to advance in their career. There should be opportunities for people to go to conferences, no matter their rank or their gender or what kind of community they come from. That goes for the promotional opportunities as well. If the training is being given to just a select few, that's going to impact their opportunity to promote. And one of the big key things as well is your policies and practices for those that are raising children and they might need flexibility. Jen mentioned lactation rooms within the station. Some of our smaller stations might not have that available, but women might be working and patrolling in a community they live. Can we be flexible and let them go ahead and go home at lunch? And the other thing is making sure that not just policies are in place, but that practices are in place to make sure that there's no harassment or discrimination. Sadly, we still see the cases come up in the news where there has been discrimination and harassment, not just of women, but from folks of communities of color. And we need to be very cognizant that that is still happening and make those changes. There's, folks that we'll talk about back in the day that when we came on, we just tried to assimilate in and fit in and we would look the other way. We really can't do that. We have to make sure that everyone's being treated equal within their organization. Next slide, please, Jen. So having videos or information that's really explicit on the process is really helpful. So I spend a lot of time researching what agencies are doing. And when I look and I can't find things on somebody's site of how do I apply or who do I go to, I can't find an email address. I can't find a portal to put my personal history questionnaire in. That can be frustrating and someone's going to move on to the next organization. I mentioned our mentoring program. Everybody should have some level of mentoring program in place so that you can get folks to stay through the application process, make sure they're successful in the hiring. Mock oral boards are really important, and making sure that the people that sit on the boards understand what the vision is for your organization and that they understand diversity, equity, and inclusion. So if you had an oral board that is made up of people that are so similar to one another and someone different comes through the door, whether they're female or from a community of color, it's going to be more difficult for them to really get a fair shake. We tend to be in groups that look like us, act like us, think like us, and that's not helpful. And so putting folks through a mock oral board process is helpful and that they learn the skills to be successful. Right? Our goal is to get people into our door. And so many times I've seen organizations that the oral board process is about eliminating and intimidating people through the questioning, and that is very stoic. And that process just doesn't work anymore. We need to be professional, but we need to be more inclusive. And the young folks today don't have the exposure. They might not have family members that are in the field. They might not have these opportunities. So let's help them out with that. Ride-alongs, getting folks out into the field so that they can see the portrayal on the news is not accurate, right? What's being shown on the news is horrific at times, but very isolated cases, considering the amount of interactions that law enforcement have. So get people out there and see that you're out there helping people, that you're talking to people. Let them be exposed to your organization. Better social media, and that's combined with our websites, the brochures, the videos, anything that you have that highlights an organization in its best light is really important. And obviously to make sure that it's inclusive, we need to stop highlighting weapons and canines that have their teeth barred. and the SWAT type of atmosphere, because that's really not the reality. So many of our videos, it's a little bit of tokenism, that there's a woman in the brochure, the video that just appears for a moment and isn't really included in the process. When you're posting things on social media, make sure that the diverse types of things that you're doing in your community are reflected. So many organizations just have their latest crime stats or who they're trying to apprehend, and that's not helpful. Next slide, please. Just quickly, I'm using as an example Mesa, Arizona Police Department. This is some stills from their recruiting website. It's very extensive. So the learn, lead, live, and frequently asked questions in the contacts. You click on those and drop downs come down. To the right, you can see you have questions. Each one of those has drop downs, and all of their information is transparently posted. Love to see that they have a whole section devoted to 30 by 30 and women in policing, and another one to diversity and inclusion. So if you go to their website, you'll see on the drop down for diversity and inclusion, all of the different community groups that they're working with, the different fairs and things that they're going to. And there's very little forward-facing photos with weapons. Most everything is really based on what everyday policing is. Next slide. This is another slide about kind of the inclusive media, social media that you should be doing. The top row are things that we're still sadly celebrating, all female shifts. No one is interested when there is just an all male shift, right? That happens every single day. But these are photos for when there were just all females that happen to be on the shift at the same time. The bottom row are just some photos to show that if you see it, you can be it. You need to promote this. The fact that we have the first female commissioner of the NYPD, putting that out into the media means that somebody else can follow in her footsteps. The commissioner has broken through, and we need other folks to be able to do that. And then the next slide, probably won't have time to show this. It is a video from Grand Junction, Colorado. It's a very progressive video. So if we can't watch it today, hopefully we can just put the URL into the chat for folks.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I forget, Kim, do you remember how long the video is?
It's about 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes.
Okay, yeah, I think we will just have Shane put it in the chat then. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for all of the amazing examples and resources that you shared. And we really love working with partners like this. Kim and I have been working together on the recruiting project for a few years, and they're heavily involved in the new Aspire project. And even just meeting Marcia recently, we've already identified some potential research partnerships. And this is how the work gets done, right? It can't just be us, in research in our silo. And I think this whole symposium is a wonderful example of that, of you all bringing your experiences and your examples and resources and combining that with our research capabilities to really do some amazing things. So thank you, Kim, for being a great partner and for making this work. This is example A here of like women making it happen. Kim woke up with no power and no internet this morning, and she is still here with us. So thank you so much for being here. All right. Okay. Well, it decided it wanted to start. So I think I'm going to look at Kevin. I don't know, we're about at time, but I was going to, why don't you put it in the chat, I suppose, if you have any answers to this question of I'm just curious, what your agencies have done regarding recruitment and retention, because we're always looking for new good ideas, right? Like we can come up with solutions from the research, but these tangible examples are what are most helpful to agencies. So if your agency is doing anything particularly interesting, especially something other than what you already heard, please let us know, share via email. I have my email address here. I know Kim's was on her slide, but we'll make sure that we're all available to stay in touch after this. And I don't know, do we have time for a question? If anyone has one? I'm getting nods. I don't know. Otherwise, please get in touch with us afterwards, and we're happy to support recruitment and retention and any other workforce issues that you may have. All right. Thank you so much.